So what we've done so far in Chapter 3, we've taken a look at transactions. We have broken those transactions into 2 accounts that are going to be affected, and then we put those on our journal. Our journal has 5 columns for numbers. 3 of them are special and 2 of them are general. Our special columns are identified because they actually have account title on the top. And we need to make sure when we record every transaction that our debits and credits equal. That was like a crash course of pretty much everything you learned in accounting before, and with a lot of vocabulary. Now, what we're going to be doing in 3.4 is you can see we have a journal, and we're going to be recording more transactions. But here's what we're going to learn is we are going to get to the point where we run out of room on one page, if you actually think about it as a piece of paper. And we're going to learn what to do on this page to bring the numbers onto the next page, because it is very important that we have a total for the month. I need to know for my business what my sales are for February. And I also need to know what my sales are for January. So by having a total for the month, that gives me right here how much my sales is. It also gives me how much cash I received during the month and how much cash I paid out, which helps me for determining my statement of cash flows. Businesses need to make sure they know how much cash they have coming in and out because they need to be able to pay their bills. So we're going to record transactions, and then when we get to the bottom of a journal page, we're going to go through and total up our journal, and then we're going to go through and put those totals on the top of the next page, and then we're going to have our total for our month. Now, we need to remember every line that we've been doing, I've said, do your debits and credits equal? Yes. We are actually going to need to total improve our journal to make sure that our debits and credits equal. Now, one of the things I do want to show you is there is a calculator on your computer. Please, right now, click on Start in the lower left-hand corner of your computer, and then type in CALC. And then that'll be your calculator. And then you can position that on your screen. Now, I highly recommend when you're using your calculator to use your numeric keypad on the far right-hand side of your keyboard. How do you use your numeric keypad? The first thing you have to do is you need to make sure your numlocks is on. You can tell your numlock is on because the light for number 1 will be on. If numlocks is on and that light is on, you can use those numbers on the right. And the reason I say to use the numbers, it's going to be much faster than if you take your mouse and you click on those buttons on the calculator. That takes a lot longer. Now, I can use my numeric keypad without looking at them, meaning I can type without looking at my fingers. I can also use my numeric keypad. So when to do your numeric keypad, you have a home row just like when you type, and you would put your numbers on 4, 5, and 6. That's like your home row. And then you would reach up from 4 to 7, and you would reach down from 4 to 1, and that's how you would be able to type. So when I'm putting in a lot of numbers, I always use the numeric keypad on the right-hand side, and I can go ahead and plug them in very fast. It is important that you learn that skill and that you can go through and develop and use that. It's called the 10 keypad because it's going to make it much faster. Okay? So you will always have access to a calculator. I'm not going to be asking you to go through and add it up in your head. It's just going to go a lot easier. And that way you don't have to worry about being distracted by notifications on your phone. Correct? Yeah. So our directions read, for 3-4, use the journal below. Your instructor will guide you to the following examples. Now, I'm skipping over where it says transactions. I'm actually going to instruction number 1. Instruction 1 says, journalize a transaction for April 23rd and 27. Source documents are abbreviated as follows: C check, R receipt, S sales invoice, and T cash register tape. We have done all of these transactions before. We just got to get them on there. So on April 23rd, that's going to go on line 13 in my journal. I'm going to put the date of the 23rd. Transactions read, sold services on account to L. Rowe. Brooke, what are my 2 accounts? Is there a special column for sales? Is there a special column for accounts receivable? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do accounts receivable, L. Rowe. Source document is going to be S2. You said sales. There's only one column for sales, so it's going to be sales as a credit for $375 and general debit for $375. We also need to record the transaction on the 27th. I'll put the date in of the 27th. It says paid cash to owner for personal use. Lincoln, what are my two accounts? Okay. Is there a special column for cash? Is there a special column for withdrawal? Okay. So what goes in my account title? Nope. Who's the name of our owner? Give you a hint. Look at line 12. Norm Dermer. You see his name there in line 12? Okay. So Norm is the name of our owner. So we're going to do Norm Dermer drawing, and it's going to be source document is going to be C7, and you have bells and whistles going off because cash credit, right? C check, C cash, C credit for $500, and that'll be a general debit for $500. So that is instruction number 1. Now, instruction number 2 tells me to prove and rule page 1 of the journal, carry the column totals forward to page 2 of the journal. So what I need to do on line 15 of this journal page is I need to put totals. Now, we are not going to write the word totals because the word total means that's at the end of the month. So the first thing I have to do is I have to put a date in. The date that I put in is the date of the last transaction. So I'm going to put the 27th. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these numbers and I'm going to carry them onto the next page. So on line 15, I'm going to put carried forward. Carried forward again means I'm taking this number and putting it someplace else. I'm carrying it onto another location. Now, this is a total that we're doing, so there is no source document, but I do need to put a V in the post reference. Just know that you don't understand the whole column yet. So now what you need to do, using your calculator, you need to go through and add up general debits. So I would put in my calculator 375 plus 500 plus 300, 250, 1,000, 510, 148, 1,000, 375, and 500. So the next thing that we have to do, after you have your totals on the bottom of page 1, we scroll down and we have a spot right here where we have to prove our totals. So what you need to do is, using your totals from the bottom of page 1, you are going to have something that you put in general debit and general credit. Now notice for sales that they have a spot for debit and credit, but you won't put anything in the debit spot, but you will have cash debit, cash credit, and then add down and get a debit total, and add down and get a credit total. They must equal. Okay? Did we get our debits and credits to equal? When I did mine, this is what I got. I have a general debit of $4,958 and a general credit of $2,255. Sales of $3,385. General debit of $4,255. Excuse me. Cash at $3,573. I added them up. My total debits is $9,213. My total credit is $9,213. Happy dance because they equal. Now, let me tell you that they're not always going to equal. You're going to make a math mistake, and this is my biggest tip for you. Guys in the top row, turn around and look at me so I know you hear me. If they don't equal, the first thing that I would do is re-add every column. My general tip is, when I'm going through and adding, is I will add it up twice. And if I get the same number twice, what does that mean? It usually means it's pretty good to go. If I add it up once and I get one number, and then I add it up again and I get a different number, I keep adding until I get the same number twice. So it oftentimes will take a little bit of time for you to double check your math. If it doesn't equal, I will be around to help you to find into mistake. But oftentimes it's going to be that you just didn't add correctly. So take the time to make sure you slow down and add. Oh, 992? For credit, yes. Thank you. That is a great example of transposition. Okay? What does that mean, guys, in the top row? This is going to be another big mistake that happens. I had the right numbers in the wrong order. And oftentimes, if you have a transposition error, the amount that you're off by is divisible by 9. And that's just something that you learn when you're going through and trying to troubleshoot. So if I went through and I realized that the amount that I'm off is $18, I would say, is the amount that you're off divisible by 9? And I would say yes. Well, then it's going to be a transposition error, and then the transposition error would be in the tens column. So I will help you to walk you through that. But one of the things that you need to do if you need help getting something to prove is I will always say make sure you have your numbers written down, and I will always ask you how much are you off by. And don't say, oh, I'm about $200 off. About doesn't cut it. I want to know if you're off $175, that's what I want to know, because that helps me to show you how to find and fix that mistake. Okay, so we have our totals from the bottom of page 1 done, so that means we have to do page 2 of our journal, so we should still be on our work together. We are not done. We need to go on the top of page 2. I have to put in my month. The month is April. I need to put in the date. The date is the 27th. Why is it the 27th? Because I take the number, the date from the carried forward, and I put it on the top of page 2. Now, I carried my numbers from page 1, and I brought them on to page 2. So on the top of page 2, I'm going to write brought forward. And anytime I do carried forward or brought forward, I also put a V in the check mark, a check mark in the post-reference column. And now I just put those same numbers down, 4,958. All the way across. So the numbers on the bottom of page 1 are now on the top of page 2. Once I have done that, I need to go through and record the rest of the transactions for April. And in fact, in our directions, did you notice there's a typo? It says complete the rest of the transactions for June. Mistake. It's supposed to be April. Okay. So let's go ahead and record the transaction on the 29th. The 29th reads, receive cash and account from L. Rowe. Melina, what are my 2 accounts? Great. Any special columns? So what am I going to put in my account title? Thank you. Accounts receivable L. Rowe. Source document is going to be R3. Do I have more cash or less cash, Melina? More, because we received it. So cash is going to be debited, and general is going to be credited. Date of the 30th. Receive cash from sales, $544. Brett, what are my 2 accounts? Cash and sales. Do I have any special columns? If I have 2 special columns, what do I do, Brett? Why? And why don't I just leave it blank? Well, it'd be wrong, and then it looks like we forgot to do something. Putting a check mark indicates that I know nothing gets here, but I don't want to leave it blank. And then our date is T30. T stands for calculator tape. 30 stands for the date. If you put a check mark in the account title, you also put a check mark in the post reference. And we're affecting sales and cash, you said. There's only one column for sales, so sales has to be credited. So therefore, cash must be debited. Now, we are to instruction number 4. Prove page 2 of the journal. Okay, so congratulations, you are to the end of April. Now, anytime we are going through and recording transactions and we get to the end of the month, we have to have totals on the last day of the month. So you ready to learn something very amazing with your hands? Are you? You ready, Brett? Okay. Your totals always go on the last day of the month. So you have to know how many days are in each month. The knuckles, right? Okay. So we need to know how many days are in April. So to do that, you use your knuckles. And you're going to say the months of the year, right? And you go January is on a knuckle, so how many days? 31. February. It goes in the middle, but it doesn't have 30 days. February always has 28. So it's not going to have a leap year ever in accounting class, just so you know. So we go January, February, March, April, May, June, July. And what do you do to go back? Recount again on the knuckle. August, September, October, November, December. So you go across and say the months, and once you get across your knuckle, start back on the big knuckle and go back, and that will tell you if it lands on the knuckle, it's 31 days. In between is 30, or February. So what month are we? We're in April, so we're January, February, March, April. So how many days are in April? 30. So we need to, on line 4, put the date of 30. So even though our last transaction is 30, that's not the number that you put for the totals. Totals always has to be the last day of the month. We just happen to have a transaction on the last day of the month for April. So I'm going to put the date of the 30th. Account title, I'm going to write in total. Sorry, totals. And now I'm going to do math. Now, I'm purposely moving my screen up because I don't want to see page 1 because sometimes that confuses students. What I need to do is I need to have a total for general debit. Can anyone do the total for general debit? It is really $4,958. Would you agree? So I am going to total up just on page 2 my amount for each column. Just like we did for page 1, once we have our totals in the bottom of page 2, we have to prove, and they gave us a spot to prove our numbers. It took me a little bit because I did a math mistake, but I got 10,057 for my debit and credit. Would anyone agree with my numbers? Okay, so happy dance, debits and credits equal, because there'll be lots of times when your debits and credits don't equal. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is prove our cash. Here's the thing. Right now, we just proved that our debits and credits equal, but there's another way that we can go through and check to see that we have transactions recorded correctly, and that is we can go through and make sure that our cash account equals what is on our checkbook. So in order to do that, I have to start with my beginning cash. I add the amount of cash I've received throughout the month. I subtract the amount of cash I paid out during the month, and that should give me my balance of my checkbook. Would you agree? So what that does is that allows me to see whether or not I ran out of time today. We'll finish this up together tomorrow. No homework.